Dear learners, now let's learn about different methods of payment in international trade. Now we have seen that since there is an agreement between the buyer and the seller, in this agreement, seller has to provide goods or services as per quality requirements mentioned by buyer, and in return, buyer has to make the necessary payments to the seller. This dual needs to be fulfilled when the transactions are usually completed in international business smoothly. There are basically 4 methods of payment in international business. Each payment method offers its own set of advantages and disadvantages, and the choice of method depends on various factors such as their level of trust between the parties, the nature of the goods or services being traded, and the prevailing market conditions. It's essential for both buyers and sellers to carefully consider these factors and select the payment method that best aligns with their needs and risk tolerance. Well, let's see each payment method with the flow of process and its advantages and disadvantages in the entire process to buyers and sellers. The first payment option is advance payment. So let's look at the steps performed in advance payment. Step 1. Agreement. Canada Corporation and India Corporation agree on the terms of the sale, including the price, quantity, and delivery terms. And they both also agree that the buyer will pay in advance to the seller. Step number 2, payment request. So Canada Corporation requests India Corporation to make an advance payment before the goods are shipped. Step number 3, payment initiation. India Corporation initiates the payment and transfers the agreed upon amount to Canada Corporation's bank account. Here, after the receipt of payment, Canada Corporation acknowledges the receipt of the advance payment. In this step, Canada Corporation prepares and ships the goods to India Corporation. Upon complete delivery of the goods, India Corporation confirms receipt of the goods. The transaction is complete with payment made in advance and goods delivered to the buyer in this payment method. Now let's look at different advantages and disadvantages of this payment method. While talking about the advantages, firstly, reduced risk for seller. Since in this situation the seller receives the payment upfront, reducing the risk of non-payment or default. The second one is cash flow benefits. Immediate payment improves the seller's cash flow position, enabling them to finance production or procure raw materials. Third one is simplified transaction. The transaction is straightforward with no need for extensive documentation or payment processing. Well, as far as disadvantages are concerned in this method, the first one is the risk for buyer. The buyer bears the risk of non-performance or delivery failure by the seller. Second one is capital tied up. Advance payment ties up the buyer's capital before receiving the goods, potentially impacting liquidity. Third one is limited trust. In cases where the buyer is unfamiliar with the seller, making an advance payment may raise concerns about the reliability of the transaction. The next payment option is open account. Now let's look at the steps performed in this payment method. Step 1, agreement. Canada Corporation and India Corporation agree on the terms of sale, including credit terms. Let's assume it has net 60 days from the date of invoice. Step 2 is shipment. Here Canada Corporation prepares and ships the goods to India Corporation. The third one is issuance of shipping document. Now Canada Corporation issues shipping documents to India Corporation like commercial invoice, bill of lading and packing list. Fourth one is payment initiation. Here India Corporation initiates the payment and transfers the amount to Canada Corporation's bank account on or before the agreed due date. After receiving the payments, Canada Corporation acknowledges receipt of the payment. And India Corporation confirms receipt of the goods upon delivery. The transaction is complete with the payment made within the agreed upon credit terms. Now let's look at different advantages and disadvantages of this payment method. Coming to the advantages, first one is flexibility for buyer. This payment method provides flexibility for the buyer to defer payment until after receiving the goods or after invoice date based on the agreement. Second one is relationship building. This method helps to strengthen the relationship between the buyer and seller and hence fostering repeated business in the future. Third one is reduced administrative burden. Compared to other payment methods, open account transactions typically involve less paperwork and administrative effort. As far as disadvantages are concerned in this method, first one is credit risk for seller. Here the seller bears the risk of non-payment or delayed payment by the buyer and hence this becomes major risk to the seller. Second one is cash flow challenges. In this method, delayed payment may impact on the seller's cash flow, particularly if they are relying on timely payments to fund their own operations. Third one is potential disputes. If the things won't run smooth, disputes over payment terms or discrepancies in invoices may arise, which requires resolution and it is potentially impacting the business relationship between buyer and seller. This next payment option is letter of credit. In this method, let's understand that there are two banks available in the entire process. One bank is buyer's bank and the other one is seller's bank. Let's look at the steps performed in this payment method. Step 1 is agreement. Canada Corporation and India Corporation agree on the terms of the sale, including the use of a letter of credit for payment. Second point is LC application by buyer to his bank. So here in this step, India Corporation applies for a letter of credit to its bank, specifying the terms and conditions agreed with Canada Corporation. After this, buyer's bank issues LC, which is the letter of credit, to seller's bank. So in our case, India Corporation's bank issues a letter of credit in favor of Canada Corporation, providing assurance of payment upon compliance with the LC terms. Now step 3 is shipment. Now Canada Corporation prepares and ships the goods, ensuring compliance with the LC terms and conditions. After the shipment, Canada Corporation presents documents like the commercial invoice, the bill of lading to its bank. Now step 4 is document examination by seller's bank. Here Canada Corporation's bank examines the documents to ensure compliance with the LC terms. The fifth point is payment collection. Here, upon confirmation of document compliance, Canada Corporation's bank forwards the documents to India Corporation's bank for payment. And then further, India Corporation's bank make payments to Canada Corporation upon receipt of compliant documents. Finally, Canada Corporation acknowledges receipt of payment and India Corporation confirms receipt of the goods upon delivery. The transaction is complete with payment made through the letter of credit mechanism. Now let's look at different advantages and disadvantages of this payment method. Firstly, regarding advantages, the payment security for seller. A letter of credit provides assurance of payment to the seller as long as they comply with the terms and conditions specified in the LC. Second point is risk mitigation. In this payment method, both the parties benefit from reduced risk as the buyer is assured that the payment will only be made upon document compliance, while the seller is guaranteed that the payment will be received once compliant documents are presented. Global acceptance. This method is widely accepted in international trade and acts as a standardized payment mechanism. As far as disadvantages are concerned in this method, complexity and costs. In this method, establishing and administering a letter of credit involves complexity and costs, which includes bank fees and charges for document preparation. Secondly, documentary compliance. In this method, it needs strict documentary requirements and those must be met for payment to be made, which may lead to delays or discrepancies if documents are not prepared accurately. Third one is potential for disputes. Finally, disputes may arise over discrepancies in documents or interpretation of LC terms, leading to delays in payment and strain on the business relationship. And this our next payment option is documentary collection. Let's look at the steps performed in this payment method. Step 1 is here again agreement, where the Canada Corporation and Indian Corporation agree upon the terms of the sale, including the use of documentary collection for payment. Second point is shipment. Here Canada Corporation prepares and ships the goods to India Corporation. Third one is document preparation. Here Canada Corporation prepares the shipping documents like commercial invoice and bill of lading and presents them to its bank. In step number 4, upon receiving these documents, Canada Corporation's bank forwards the shipping documents to India Corporation's bank with instructions for collection. Then India Corporation's bank receives the documents and notifies India Corporation of their arrival. Step number 5. Payment instructions. India Corporation reviews the documents and decides whether to accept the documents and make payment or negotiate a payment term. If India Corporation agrees to the terms, it makes payment to India Corporation's bank, which releases the documents to India Corporation. Buyer receives these documents after payments, which is allowing buyer to claim the goods at the port. In step number 6, buyer's bank makes the payment to seller's bank. After the payment is made, Canada Corporation acknowledges the receipt of payment and India Corporation confirms receipt of the goods upon delivery. The transaction is then complete with payment made through the documentary collection process. Now let's look at the different advantages and disadvantages of this payment method. Firstly, the advantages. First point is intermediate payment option. Very important point to note here is documentary collection payment method is an intermediate payment option between advance payment and open account terms. Here, it provides some security to the seller by offering flexibility for the buyer. Secondly, reduced risk compared to open account. In this method, the seller has more control over the shipping documents, reducing the risk of non-payment compared to open account transactions. Thirdly, cost savings. Finally, documentary collection typically involves lower costs compared to letters of credit, making it a more cost-effective payment option. Well, as far as disadvantages are concerned in this method, firstly, it's a risk for a seller. Although documentary collection provides some level of security for the seller, there is still a risk of non-payment or delayed payment if the buyer refuses to accept documents or disputes their accuracy. Second one is limited payment security. Documentary collection does not provide the same level of payment security for the seller as letters of credit, as payment is dependent on the buyer's willingness to accept the documents and make payments. Thirdly, complexity and disputes. Finally, disputes may arise over discrepancies in documents or disagreements between the parties, leading to delays in payment and potential strain on the business relationship. So, to conclude, each payment method offers different levels of risk and flexibility for both parties, and the choice of payment method depends on various factors such as trust, creditworthiness, and familiarity between the parties involved. Now let's quickly look at the table that explains the difference between all these 4 payment methods. Well, I hope you love this concept. Stay tuned for another interesting concepts.